Just as an overview, we're talking about Manchester City. I think we both agree they're in a really, really, really good place. If you look at where they are financially, they're in a good place. There's a lot of good squad balance. There are a couple issues that they need to address, but there's really no major pressure in that sense. There's two imponderables in the background, which we have to mention. We just mentioned them because they could change the plans when they happen, if they happen. But in the here and now, they don't. One of them is Pep Guardiola's contract. And obviously that expires in June 2025. He's going to leave when he's ready to leave, and he can stay as long as he likes. We agree on that.
Yeah. The thing is with that, though, I think there are two things like this. So the second one we'll get onto in a minute is the 115 charges. That one, nobody at City really knows how it's going to play out. There may be people at City right now who know what Pep Guardiola's intentions are. He may have told them privately. But even then, they can plan for that. They can have a succession plan for Guardiola in place. Even though it'll be a big loss, they can make plans for that. The second part of it, different, because we don't know. Nobody knows what the implications of the 115 charges are in terms of if they're found guilty of all or some or none or whatever. Guardiola's the easy bit, even though it's the hard bit trying to replace him.
Exactly. No, I definitely agree with that. And so I think you soldier on and then you react when it happens because you know where. Looking at this list that we put together, with the goalkeepers, they've got three keepers, obviously Ederson, Stefan Ortega, and Scott Carson, making it very simple. We've got them keeping and extending Ederson. I think that's a no-brainer. His contract is up in 2026.
And there has been some noise recently that Ederson might be on his way this summer. Looking at his contract in 2026, that could be a bit more love, a bit more kind of bit of a pay rise, bit of a longer deal, or there might be some reality to the fact that he might want to get away. If he does, that complicates the situation with Ortega, who's one of the best, if not the best, number two. As it stands right now, his contract expires in 12 months, so you have to really move him on. Unless Ederson moves on, then you've got a problem.
Yeah, my gut says that it's simply Ederson's people wanting a better deal. There's no great market for keepers right now. Most big clubs who could afford Ederson have somebody in place. Ortega is the interesting one because I thought he did really well when he was called on to replace Ederson. I think obviously you either extend his deal, but he's 31. I think he might want to play. I think he's shown that he can play. Before that, he was at a very small club, Arminia Bielefeld. So we have him as somebody who they should look to move on the assumption that he wants to move.
Yeah, I think he would want to move. He's not going to want to spend a third season as Ederson's number two.
All right, going on to the defenders, and I'm looking at my notes here, and obviously we're going to look at people who are on loan as well. We've got 5 guys who are just straight keeps and very easy, right? Ruben Dias, Josko Gvardiol, Manuel Akanji, and Rico Lewis. All of them have long-term contracts in 2027 or beyond. Kyle Walker is only through 2026, but then he's 33 years old. He got a new contract last year. This is easy. There's not much discussion there. We're both on the same page. You can wait to see if you can extend him beyond that, but for now you're good. Some of the other ones that I think of the players who were kind of in the mix and who are interesting, you've got Nathan Ake, he's 29. His deal expires in 2027. And this is one where we disagree a little bit. You're in favor of moving him if you get the right offer. Why is that?
Well, as reliable as Nathan Ake is, he's probably a third or fourth choice centre-half, and he's basically become the emergency left-back. I just think City, in the position they're in, they haven't got many areas they need to strengthen. But if they found an out-and-out defined left-back, I think that would basically take away one element of Ake's ability. And I think also, he's 29, like I say, good possibility to get some money in there. I think they can survive without Nathan Ake if they get a left-back in.
He's going to be 32 when his contract expires. I would think when you look at the number of minutes he actually played in the last 2 seasons, I would lean towards keeping him. The other factor with him, unless you get a crazy offer, but I think given he's got 3 years left of City wages, I don't think you're going to get a very big offer for you that might make you turn your head. John Stones is 29. His deal is up in 2026. This is interesting. We're both in agreement on this one. You want to keep him, but we don't want to extend his deal.
No, because of the injuries and the situation he's had. He doesn't play. The stats, I think you mentioned the stats recently. he doesn't start as many games as people think. And I think he's one of those players, if Guardiola leaves at the end of next season in 2025, there's going to be a lot of players who approaching the final year of the contract. New coach comes in, maybe a lot of players want to move on, I guess, when Pep goes. A new coach might want different players. So I think there's going to be a big summer next summer at City, no matter what happens. Even if we take aside the charges, if Pep goes, then there's going to be, or even if Pep stays, that's going to be a huge summer for City because a lot of 2026 contracts. So I think Stones is right in the heart of that.
Sergio Gomez, his contract is also up in 2026. We both have him as a keep. We no need to extend his contract now, but in the next 6 months, I think you decide whether you want to extend it or not. I think he's done fine when he's come on. He's obviously not your long-term left back. He's different from the other defenders. We've seen him play de facto with 4 center backs for much of the season. I don't think he's a bad guy to have in the mix, and he's still young.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'd say keep him, but I was 51-49 on that because I think that he's not part of the future.
All right. Moving on to the loan players, because there's one of them who we want to bring back to the Etihad, and that's Yan Couto. Yan Couto's he's done very well at Girona. He's got a deal through 2025. He's only 21 years old. We both agree he should be extended. The difference between us is you'd want to keep him, and I'd want to loan him.
Well, I mean, that's just a toss of a coin, isn't it? I guess with Girona potentially being in the Champions League next season, we don't know if that's been resolved yet. They may decide to send him back to Girona, but whatever happens, I don't think you let him go, you extend him. But like I say, Girona's complicated, so we'll have to wait and see how that one plays out.
Yeah, a year left on his deal. I think extend him, lock him up, because I think he's done enough to show that he can contribute. There's a lot of value in him, and then maybe you loan him to Girona or whatever. The point is, he's not a Girona player. He is a Manchester City player.
We have to stress that Girona are owned by the City Football Group, so
I think they're minority owned by the City Football Group. But
they've got the biggest stake.
Yeah, they have the biggest stake. Yeah. Issa Kabore was at Luton Town on loan. Again, I think he did fine. Do I ever see him playing for City? No. He's got a deal that expires in 2025. This is a good opportunity to move him. I think you can raise a little bit of money for him, maybe 5 to 8 million. And then there's João Cancelo. For some reason, when we point out the mistakes that Pep has made over the years, there aren't many. I think clearly extending Cancelo's loan and then deciding that you don't like him anymore is an issue, because he's 29 and he still has another 3 years left on his contract.
Yeah, I mean, with the way the market is at the moment, you're going to find it very difficult to find something to take off your hands permanently. The wages and the fee, it's going to be very difficult. So I think you can only loan him back out again. You might think, 2027, he could ride it out. If Pep goes next summer, he's got 2 years left in his contract, so he might want to stay on another loan. But I do think that they're going to have to find a way to be creative.
Well, he wants to play, right? So obviously he's got no choice. They offer him a loan. He's gonna take the loan, especially if it's to a club of. He's been loaned to Bayern. He's been loaned to Barcelona, big clubs.
I think they loan him because I don't think nobody can afford to take him off the hands permanently.
Yeah, that's pretty much the situation. So midfield, looking at the ones which are straight keeps, and we're all in agreement, and there's no issue. Rodri, Mateus Nunes, and Mateo Kovacic, they all have deals till 2027, or beyond. And again, they just arrived. In the case of Nunes and Kovacic, some people may not like them so much, but the reality is you're not going to shift them at this stage. Certainly not Kovacic, who is now 30 years old. The interesting ones, and we kind of treated them a little bit as a unit, right? Bernardo Silva is 29. He's got 2 years left until 2026. Every year, I feel for the past 2 summers, there's been this idea that he wants to move on. He's had a good, not because he doesn't like City, but he had a good time. He's been there a long time. He's ready to go somewhere else. I'm assuming, but he still has 2 years left. I'm assuming it's the kind of thing where you just sit and you just listen. If he has an offer, if you think the offer is good, if he says, Pep, may I go? Pep has said in the past he's not going to stand in people's ways. You just deal with it, right? And in either case, you do not extend his contract.
No, don't extend his contract, but it seems to be every summer since he's been there's been a kind of Bernardo wants to move to Spain, and I think we're getting to the point now where it could happen. But I think It came close last summer, but I don't think anybody, certainly Barcelona, have got the financial ability to do it, unless City are, I'm saying realistic on the fee, but the market hasn't got a lot of money in it, wages and fees. So I think Bernardo, happily stay because he's a great player, he's contributed, and he will do next season. But if you can get something taken off your hands and he wants to go, then you move him on.
I think realistically the only way this happens is if he makes a lifestyle choice and he says, look, I'm going to go. It's not about the money. I'll take less money somewhere else, and they work something out. But he would really have to go really like the project he's going to. If not, he's staying and he's going to contribute the way he has. Kevin De Bruyne, this is the other one that's interesting. And this, I think, by the way, shows City's discipline over the years. So I've pointed this out. They showed it when they sold when they sold Zinchenko, when they sold Raheem Sterling, when they sold who's the other one? Oh, Gabriel Jesus, of course. When they let all these guys go, they really instill this idea that the collective is more important. They won't be held to ransom by contracts that are declining or they're diminishing. Kevin De Bruyne, I think, is a good example. He got his extension, but it was a 2-year extension. He's very important to the team, but he's not irreplaceable. He's 32. His deal expires in 2025. I think it's one of those, you call it a Riyad Mahrez situation. Yeah. You listen to offers, you keep him, but you do not extend him. You can evaluate this down the road.
Look, he's 32, but he's 33 in June. So he's got a lot of miles on the clock, I guess, because he's, we all remember him at Chelsea as a kid, but he went to Wolfsburg, had a couple of great seasons at Wolfsburg, and he's been around for a long time. And the role he plays demands a lot of physical energy and fitness. He's missed a lot of games in the last 18 months. And I think as much as he's a City legend in what he's done pre and during Guardiola's reign, there is a suggestion that there may be a move to Saudi Arabia in the offing. I'd be surprised. I'm not quite sure that Kevin De Bruyne is the sort of player that you would see in Saudi Arabia, but who knows? But a year after his contract, I think that Kevin De Bruyne could go this summer because I think maybe he doesn't want to fade away at City in the sense that he finds that his 10 years is caught up with him.
He's turning 33, not 43. He's not going to fade away if he stays more.
But he's had injuries. And I think, he's...
But every time he plays, he stays head and shoulders above everybody else, not named Rodri or Phil.
But there is
Right. Wait, some disagreement on this one. Looking at some of the guys that they have on loan, Calvin Phillips, he's 28. You're on the hook for him for another 4 years after this one. Again, this is another one. Again, Pep doesn't make many mistakes, but he is fallible. This is definitely one of them. Hasn't worked out.
No, and I think what's made it worse is the fact that he went on loan to West Ham, and I guess both Calvin Phillips and City were hoping that he would do well enough to warrant a move elsewhere. And it's probably been worse at West Ham than it has been at Man City. He's had a disastrous time at West Ham. Missed out on the England squad for the Euros. He really, really needs to leave City, but long contract, big wages, big problem. It is a big problem. Maybe if Leeds get promoted back, maybe. But
I think this ends up with, I think the only option, you're not going to be able to move him on for a fee. I think the only way this happens is if you send him on loan somewhere and you subsidize his wages. I think that's the reality of where he is right now. James McAtee was at Sheffield United on loan. He's a technically gifted player. He may yet develop, but I don't think he's ever going to be City caliber. He's got 2 years left. This is a perfect time to move him on, get some money in for a fee. I think you can get maybe 10 million for him, something like that.
He's had 2 seasons at Bramall Lane. I guess the question for him is, does he go back to Sheffield United in the Championship, or does he get moved to the Premier League? And if it's Premier League, to get more money. So
he'll get his deal. They've got Claudio Echeverri, who I've only seen on YouTube, but he's 18. He's at River on loan. They only got him in January. I think this is very obvious. Given how young he is, you loan him. The only question is, do you leave him on loan at River? That would be my inclination. Or do you send him to a City football group club somewhere else in Europe, also because you might have work permit issues in the UK?
I suspect, like you say, they have a number of clubs, particularly in Europe, that could take him on. So I think that might be the best. Although the French team was just relegated to the 3rd division, so I'm not sure that would be the best option.
No, but you don't send him to try in the French.
Exactly.
No. But I would leave him at River. Big club, big pressure. Let him go there, rather than. I
don't know. I think moving to a European CFG club.
You're so Eurocentric. Maximo Perrone had a good season. He's really young, 21. Another long-term deal through 2028. He was a starter for much of the year at Las Palmas, who of course stayed up. He is kind of, I don't know how much you've seen of him, but he's very much the really busy, pure defensive midfielder. I kind of like what he brings. I think he can develop as somebody who can contribute at City, but it's not now. So you loan him out again.
But why not at 21? Put him in, take him back, put him in the squad. Like the whole Phil Foden idea was to put him around the great players. They learn and develop alongside the great players. So is that not an option for Perona?
No, it's not. Because he's not Phil Foden, and what you have him and say like follow Rodri around and you'll become like him. No,
Well,
not for me.
He could get more games than Calvin Phillips did.
It probably would. With the forwards and the wingers, we have all right, Jeremy Doku's a straight keep. That's easy, long-term contract. Oscar Bob, straight keep, even longer-term contract through 2029. Julian Alvarez is 2028. You keep him. We're going to have a discussion later about what his role might be going forward. Erling Haaland is obviously a keep. Erling Haaland's a keep. One thing I would point out on Erling Haaland is you noted this. With his contract and with that release clause that everybody's coy about, whether it exists or not, do you push to try to get some resolution and maybe remove the release clause or whatever?
Well,
do you make an effort at that?
If I'm Man City, I want to control your best player or your best goal scorer. I think you want to make sure that you have control of his future. And right now, if there is an escape clause, which you had at Dortmund and you had at Salzburg, then that leaves you vulnerable. But the downside for Haaland is that where would he go? Even if he has a set fee in his contract, it'd be a lot more than what City paid when he came from Dortmund. So even if it's £100 million, that's a lot of money.
Well, it's not a downside for him. It just gives him an edge.
It gives him an edge, but in the market where, who would pay the money for Haaland, the fee and the wages? It will be an expensive deal for anybody to do. So maybe he's not got anywhere to go for a while, because if Real Madrid sign Mbappe, as they will do, then they can't afford to take him on.
I think what's pretty evident is Erling Haaland's not motivated by money. So if you can give him more years and give him a raise,
but he's not going to care. He's not going to go someone for a pay cut because he wants to play in Italy or Spain. He's not going to go for...
No, but what I'm saying is I think he would turn down a contract renewal, which sees this clause, sees them get rid of this clause.
He's totally in control. There's no
reason.
There's no
reason. So what I'm saying is there's no reason for him. You can say, we could try to extend him, but he's going to say,
not at all.
No, let's talk next year.
Yeah, there's no reason for him. He's in total control.
Jack Grealish is 28. His contract expires in 2027. We both have him as a keep, but do not extend. You called it an assessment season for him.
Well, yeah, he's not had a great season this year. I think Jack Grealish admitted that himself. He said he's had a tough year. He's struggled at times on and off the pitch. And we've seen that on the pitch. Jeremy Doku's been the guy that's delivered for City from the wing. If that happens next season as well, then I think City would look to move him on, no matter who the manager is. He'll be 28 next summer. Jack Grealish is a very talented player, but I don't know. At clubs like City, you can't have two bad seasons back to back, and I think he needs to be aware of that.
We got Phil Foden. We all agree on keeping him, but he only signed a deal in October 2022. Mm-hmm. Since then, in the last 18 months, he scored 43 goals.
Yeah.
Do you give him a raise just because he deserves it?
Absolutely. You give him a raise in a contract to make him realise how important he is.
You don't think he realises that without the raise?
Of course he does, but I think he looks around the dressing room as, thinking, well, I should be on the par with the highest earners because he's homegrown superstar. He's a potential Ballon d'Or winner in the future. So City should look after him as in that fashion, that he is the jewel in the crown in many ways, because he's the homegrown kid, he's the academy poster boy, and he's developed to a point where, he's already got 6 Premier League title winning medals. What is he? 23. Give him what he wants.
All right. Our overall verdict is that City are in very good shape. And obviously there's things that they can't control, which are Pep and the charges. So they just move forward. I do think that if Pep somehow gets a second wind and decides to recommit for a long time, I could see him really reshaping this team the way he's done in the past at Bayern. Really, even at the start of his City tenure, from like his first iteration of the City team to the one that we see now. But again, these are things that are really beyond your control. Biggest thing is the succession plan for me for Bernardo and Kevin De Bruyne. You've got that already a little bit. Phil Foden, we assume, will fill one of those slots. It's a question of somebody else that can maybe grow into the role. I don't think they're necessarily in a rush. They can take their time. It's not going to be Kovacic because of age. It's not going to be Mateus Nunes, I think, because of ability. They can buy their time a little bit and maybe in the next year or two find that other piece in sort of attacking midfield, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's no rush there.
The other point for me is up front, and I think this is where I think they could do with another option. And what I mean by this is Julian Alvarez plays a ton, either off the bench or starting. He's versatile. We've seen him play wide. We've seen him play in a two with Holland. His profile, though, is very different from Holland. And I kind of feel if you have a team that plays for Holland most of the time, when he's not there and you replace it with somebody else who's not Holland. So I'm just wondering, maybe you make an investment in somebody who is a similar profile to Holland. In other words, the size, the strength, the ability to get behind, the left foot, that kind of thing.
I don't know. I'm going to throw a little stick of dynamite in here, and I think there's a player. This is what I was told maybe a couple of years ago. Pep was asked by somebody at City, if you could have any player you want in the world, who would it be? And he said Marcus Rashford. And obviously the person they told was quite surprised because, Rashford at the time was having a great time at United, but still, a Man United player. Now, 2 years on, Marcus Rashford is in a bad place at Man United. He's not doing well. He's lost his England place in the Euros. I wonder whether it would suit Man City, Marcus Rashford, and even Man United for a deal to happen. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I've not been told anything about it, but Pep likes him. United would struggle to get anyone to take Rashford off the hands. Rashford would develop under Pep Guardiola. Pep would get a player that he likes. What's not to like?
I can see the magic mushrooms you took before we started taping this have just taken hold.
It's a deal that suits everybody.
That's our keep and dump for Manchester City.